What is a REST API? What are the benefits? And how are they fundamental to your cloud application development? I'm Nathan Heckman from IBM Cloud, and I'm going to answer that for you today. But before I do, please hit that subscribe button. Let's jump in with an example. Let's say that you work for an ice cream shop and you're trying to build a web application to show the flavors of ice cream that are in stock that day and allow the workers to actually make updates to those flavors. How do you do this? Well, with a REST API. You have your web app or web page communicate with a cloud-based server via a REST API. Great, so let's jump into what exactly a REST API is. Starting out with, what does REST stand for? Right, so REST stands for Representational State Transfer. So it's REST. Right? Those words might not mean a whole lot to you, but basically it's a standardized software architecture style, a specific type of API that's industry known and used. So the first thing that you should really know about REST APIs is they're all about communication. So client with server and vice versa, that's how they talk. And also, you may have heard the term RESTful. So RESTful web service, right? That's a service that uses REST APIs to communicate. So what are some of the benefits of REST APIs? First of all, they're simple and standardized approach to communication, right? You don't have to worry about what data is, how to format your data or how to format your request, each time. It's all standardized and industry used. Second of all, REST APIs are scalable and stateless. So as your service grows in complexity, you can easily make modifications. And just the fact that they're stateless means you don't have to worry about what data is in which state and keep track of that across client and server. It's truly stateless. Great. And then finally, they have high performance, in large part due to the fact that they support caching. So that's all good stuff. As your service gets more complex, the performance stays very high. Great, so let's go back to our example, right? So for the ice cream shop, what would the REST API look like, right? So you have an endpoint, which might look something like this, icecream.com/API/flavors, right? So let's break that apart a bit. So API, this just signifies that this is the API portion of the endpoint, right? So pretty straightforward there. Flavors is actually what's known as a resource. So this signifies that we're working with the flavors resource in this REST API. Great. So in our example, the main building blocks or parts of the REST API are the request that is sent from the client to the server and the response that is received back from the server, right? So let's break those apart a little bit. Over here, let's put a big old box for request. And what are the type of things that you might want to do with a REST API? What actions or verbs would you want to make when you're working with one? You may have heard of CRUD. What does CRUD stand for? So CRUD is create, read, update, and delete. These are some of the main things that you might want to do when you're communicating with your client and server. On a REST API, the equivalent of those are actually HTTP methods or operations. Right? So what's the equivalent of create in a HTTP method? Well, it's post. And how about read? So read is actually called get. Update or replace is put. And delete, guess what it is? Delete. Not too creative there. So how about a request itself? What are some of the pieces of it? So first of all, you might have an operation. That's kind of what we just talked about here with the HTTP methods. You might have an endpoint, which is what we just talked about over here. This is your REST API endpoint. And then you might also have parameters or body, which is some data that you might send in the request, and we'll see some examples in a moment. And finally are the headers. So this is a special part of an API, REST API request, which might have things like an API key or some authentication data. Great, and then in return from the server, you'll receive a response, right? So we'll put a nice box here for a response. And this is typically in the form of JSON data. Great, so let's jump into our example. And let's look at a few different scenarios that might happen with your ice cream shop, right? So first of all, let's say that you want to display what's currently in stock, right? So we want to get the flavors that are in stock. So what does our REST API request look like? Well, you have a get as the operation, because you're actually wanting to get those flavors. And then the endpoint is /API/flavors. And in response, you'll get an array of those flavor resources, right? So we see strawberry is in stock as well as mint chocolate. Yummy. But then, mint chocolate is so popular that it actually runs out for the day. And the store is scrambling and they want to replace that flavor with another one. They choose chocolate, which is a great choice. So let's say they want to update the flavors, right? So you want to update or replace that mint chocolate with just chocolate. So what does our request look like? It's a put operation, so that updates or replaces. The endpoint is /API/flavors/1 to indicate the ID of 1 you want to replace. And then parameter body, you actually specify the flavor of chocolate, which is going to be the new flavor that's replaced. And in response, we see indeed acknowledging that the ID of 1 is replaced with the flavor of chocolate. Great. Good news. The store just received a shipment of a brand new experimental flavor called Restful Raspberry. And you want to actually load this new ice cream up into your website, right? So we want to create a new flavor. How do we do that with the REST API? Well, in our operation, it's a post operation, so that actually will create a new flavor. The endpoint is, once again, /API/flavors. And we include in the body the flavor that we want to create, which is Restful Raspberry. And in response, we see, yep, this new ID of 2 was created. The flavor is Restful Raspberry. Great. So hopefully this clarifies what exactly is a REST API, what are some of the benefits, what's a real-world example look like, and how are REST APIs fundamental to your cloud application development. Thank you. If you have questions, please drop us a line below. If you want to see more videos like this in the future, please like and subscribe. And don't forget, you can grow your skills and earn a badge with IBM Cloud Labs, which are free, browser-based interactive Kubernetes labs.